to organize your amazing ideas into a powerful book? You are in the right place.
At the right time to learn how to write your book.
Hi, I'm Joyce Glass.
And I'm Sherry Lynn Bisbano, and welcome to the Right Hour Nonfiction Tips from the Right Coach team. We are so glad you joined us today.
Welcome to episode 1203 of the Right Hour. It is so much fun to walk down memory lane with my clients. Carmen Devailus, she was one of my first clients, and we became friends on her writing journey, which is a beautiful byproduct of my business. I don't gain new clients, I gain new friends, and you will love to hear how Carmen's book has encouraged so many people with family members or friends of people with dementia. Her book inspired her to create a nonprofit to raise awareness about how dementia affects families. She is a consultant and photographer, inspiring audiences around the world. During her 40-year nursing career, she worked with thousands of people seeking meaning and connection during challenging times, and then learned how to find her own. Audiences enjoy her humor and unique way to help them shine by harnessing the power of images. She is an international speaker and award-winning author of Just See Me, Sacred Stories from the Other Side of Dementia, inspiring audiences using photography and storytelling. Carmen is also an Alzheimer's dementia advocate and founder of Doggies for Dementia Foundation, using photography to capture family memories and raise awareness for Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. Enjoy this episode.
Okay.
Well, I am so excited for the next session of the Right Coach Success Stories. And today is really special because Carmen was one of my first clients that I worked with. She was probably, I don't know if you're 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there that I started working with. And we had a great time getting to know each other and working together. So Carmen, tell us a little bit about you and what led you to becoming a writer and writing the book, Just See Me.
Sure. It's kind of, I think it's kind of interesting because I really didn't have a strong desire to be a writer or an author. I always thought, well, maybe I'll write a book one day. And it was never like at the forefront because I had been a nurse practitioner 40 years.
Wow.
And 40 years. And it just hit me one day. It was like an epiphany. I needed to write some of those stories of my families and patients that had dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and other types of dementia. I just thought if people could hear those stories, there would be so much less pettiness and bickering because what they go through was so phenomenal and so much love and challenge.
Right.
That's what happened. And I thought, I'll do that. I'll just write that book and tell their stories.
Yeah. But how long had you worked on it before you met me? Do you remember?
Probably about 6 months. And in my newbie mind, I thought it would be all done by then and all wrapped up and ready to go. And then I looked, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And then somehow you found me. Do you remember how you found me? I don't remember how you found me.
I want to say Facebook. No, because I had done all of the interviews with the families and even follow up, and I'm sitting there with the recordings and my notes, literally in my living room floor, and looking at these and like, I don't know what to do. And I just felt so much pressure and to do the stories in the right way with the compassion and to tell their stories and in the beautiful way in which they told me. And that was huge for me. And I just knew I needed help. Yeah. Yeah. So, I didn't even know about editors and how that's like how newbie I was. No.
Yes. And just so you know, it was a little bit over a year that we worked together, wasn't it? And part of that, there was some off time in there because she and I both had some things going on. I moved and I think she moved. And so we had some stuff going on during that time. So it wasn't solid year that we were working. There was a little time off in there. but her 6 months turned into 18 months.
Yeah. I want to say something about that break that we took, though. And it was a short break, too, and maybe 3 weeks, I think. But again, I'm sitting there and I'm looking like there is some thread to these stories. What is it? What is it? And that's when the spirituality piece came to me, that they were, in this spiritual crisis and there were spiritual needs not being met. 13 stories, 13 different needs, which was really something. And I thought, why didn't I think of that? My master's was all about spirituality and health. Yeah, really. I'm like, oh, I never thought about it. And,
it's interesting how it all comes back around. Well, how did this book help people? And tell them a little bit about the book. I mean, you've mentioned it, but tell them a little bit more.
Sure. So I followed 13 families, which ended up being for almost 3 years time, about 2.5 years. And I followed them and I had one question, and what do you want the world to know? Not even about dementia, but, it came up, of course. And they were family caregivers caring for their husband, their spouse, or even, I think a wife. And some were in long-term care, some were at home, and some passed during the time of writing the book. And so all different stages. Yeah. And what they had to say.
And there was the one lady that had her 2 sons too that had dementia.
Yes.
That was heartbreaking, that one.
Oh, yeah. And and she passed this year.
Did she?
Yeah.
Are the boys still living?
One, the Paul, the youngest, passed last month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Such tragedy. So she was in her 70s and caring with her mother, who was in her 90s, caring for her essentially all but one of her children ended up with the genetic form of Alzheimer's. So they developed symptoms in their 30s, which is not common.
No. And that was the thing that was shocking. I did learn a lot reading your stories about the different forms of dementia. And that one really shocked me because I didn't realize there was a form that could hit people so young. And it's a rare form, but it is one that does happen. So how do you want to help people with your book?
Right. So it's interesting how it started. I thought sharing the stories, and of course I couldn't do it without the photos. I just couldn't imagine telling a story without the images. And there again, I hadn't ever even taken a photography class, but I always had my camera with me. I'm really a hobbyist. So I learned more about that. And what I realized in talking to the families, there was a common thing is that they felt misunderstood by both the healthcare and by even their friends and the public at large, because, as and, you touched on it yourself, when you're not familiar with it, the thought is it's all older people and it's kind of a short course, and most people are in nursing homes or in care, and truthfully 80% are at home, and it does strike people younger. And it's like a 10 to 15 year course for people. Yeah. And they just couldn't get over the loneliness and the isolation they experienced because their friends and family even just couldn't bear it and didn't understand it and were afraid. And they really wanted me to get a glimpse of just how difficult it was to be isolated. And of course, we're all experiencing some form of that now, which,
Thank you, COVID. Yes.
Yeah. And so even I formed a nonprofit, and that was the result of the book. And so the book is helping even more people learn about it and hear the various stories and go, oh, I'm not so alone. There are others feeling like this.
Exactly. And that I think is what the powerful part is, that people can realize they aren't alone on this journey. And there are people who are dealing with the same kind of thing. They may not be in the same town, and they may not be, in the same place, but they have that same commonality that they can connect with each other and help each other. So we're going to get back to the writing process. What did the writing process teach you about yourself?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So what a Pollyanna I am. No problem. I can do this. And the truth is I could. It was all in me. But once I started, and I felt the pressure of, oh my gosh, this has to be just right. I'm sharing their stories, and it became a legacy for them, a part of their legacy. And the importance did not get lost on me. And I kind of froze, and I thought, what am I thinking? I'm not a writer. And that, of course, was a terrible mindset to sit down and start to write. And I learned as I started to go along, I'm like, what am I thinking? I've been given this for a reason, and of course I can do it. Just let go.
What I will share is Carmen, her storytelling became better and better each story. Because each story she wrote, she learned. We went through it together. She was private coaching. And each time you turn something into me, and I would tell you, hey, do this, do that. And our fun one was passive voice, She was the passive voice. That. You are not the only one. Recently I talked with someone, and I went over, about getting rid of that. And he pulled up his manuscript. He had 23,000 words in it and 524 that's. And I said, that's about 500 too many. He goes, I said, you have less than 25. And he went, really? Yeah. And it's, for those that don't know, I'll give my that spiel. That is not that necessary. It is a filler word that we use when we're talking, because we don't walk around with the little thesauruses going, well, hold on. Let me find a better word for that right here.
Yes.
Usually there's a better word. Yeah, so, or you can take it out completely. A lot of times you can just delete it completely, and the sentence still makes sense. It's actually better because it's word clutter. It was what it is. It's word clutter. So,
well, you'll be happy to know now when I read an article or anything, when I see a lot of that, my thought is, well, there's that. And I think of you.
I have taught you well, my friend.
You have. It is in my head. Like, you don't need that one. You don't need that one. Yeah.
Now, if you start getting out the red pen on the article, I'm with you. I have done that. I have done that in books because it irritated me so much. I'll take a pen out and start crossing them out, going, you don't need all this.
Yeah, well, it irritates me now too, Joy. And when I'm writing blogs, I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that. Let me just cut the words down. Let me make this smoother, streamline it.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, what has helped you write better? What are some things that you learned in that process to become a better writer?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly those specifics, and then to look at the wording. And I did use the thesaurus a lot, so that was very helpful. And one of the things for me, though, was, I read, what do people do? They have their times or their places. And I was in turmoil in my personal life. And what I needed most was not to sit at my desk, but I went to a labyrinth that I would walk and clear my mind, clear my heart. I'm like in this prayerful state. Because for me, sharing those stories was really almost an act of prayer for me. I was, and so that helped me more than anything, was just realizing I could do this anywhere. Right. And I also wrote sometimes in a book first. My first drafts were just in my composition book. And because I just put it out there, and that was another lesson too. Your first draft is just going to be junk anyway. It just gives you the stuff there,
right?
And it's not the final. And but at least I had it all there, and then it really helped me get clear on what I really wanted to say. In fact, some of the gist of the stories wasn't even clear to me until I just started writing and journaling. It was my way of journaling about that story.
And that's key. That is key to writing. And I tell people all the time, that's the perfect thing to do, is just write those things out, get the ideas out, and then you have all those jewels of information in there that you need, and then you can just cut the rest of it out. But nobody, I don't care who they are, Stephen King, John Grisham, Jerry Jenkins, any other J person you can think of, nobody writes a perfect first draft. And a lot of, especially new writers, have this thing in their head that it has to be perfect the first time. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Just get it out of your head and write it. So if you are that person listening to this right now, don't put that pressure on yourself that it needs to be perfect. It comes out and so much better, doesn't it, Carmen?
Yeah. And that was hard for me because I have that perfectionist piece in me and that clinical piece. And then there's the Pollyanna going, okay, I could do this. And so I'm just thinking, oh yeah, first draft. And she's just going to stamp an A+ on it and send it back with a few suggestions. And I was like, oh my God, that was terrible. When I read it back, I'm like, oh no, and it took a lot.
When she saw the first round of red marks, she was kind of shocked.
There may have been some tears. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And I was like, no. That doesn't mean it's bad. That just that's part of the process. And that's something a lot of my clients have to learn. And I remember us having many a conversation about your perfectionism and the Pollyanna viewpoint to help you work through that. For those that don't know, coaching, whatever form, writing, life, business coaching, and you're a part therapist too. So you have to talk people off the ledge of perfectionism and, or whatever their fear may be, and help them do it. Because I knew reading her stories right off. She had powerful stories. It's all in how you arrange those words. And when you learn how to arrange those words in a better way, it comes out beautiful. And like I said, that I could tell each time you wrote a story, it got better and better. So, the first story compared to the last story that I got, there was a complete difference because you had learned a lot of the techniques along the way. And
right.
So,
yeah. They all ended up the same, like that. But then the process was very different. Very different.
Right.
And, I really think it helped me because at the same time I'm starting a business and learning all the business things and the photography piece of it. And I think it really helped me in the way I processed writing. I could process the other pieces as well and just start with it scrambled, and that's okay. And then just keep defining.
Yep.
So,
and the more you work on it, the more beautiful it gets. And the more you learn, the easier it gets. And so, and that's why the last one, not necessarily that it was any easier to write, but it was easier to write better because you had learned all the techniques, along the way.
Right.
So there was probably a lot less red marks.
Yeah. And, I had never even heard of the term point of view. And even in a photography class, she said, well, what's your point of view? And I'm like, huh? I don't know what that means. But it's true in writing also, and it's so important. And I learned to define that as well. And
yes, in fiction writing, especially if you don't have a point of view, and of course, you're storytelling, so it's like a lot of the fiction techniques you had to have. And if you don't have a point of view, they call it head hopping, where you're going from one person's point of view to the other, and that can be confusing for the reader because it's like, well, who's talking about what, where, who's doing what, and that can be confusing. But when you learn those techniques, then it does make it easier to write, and it's much more interesting for the reader to read. So, well, and this isn't a question we had on here, but I'm just curious, what has the response been to the book now that it's been out for about 2 years now?
Yeah. Oh my God. So I have people from all over the world writing in on how it felt to read other stories, and both in preparation for what they may be going through and for confirmation, again, that they weren't alone.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting, David and Joan, who their story, when I walked in the door to interview and to do photos, she said, I know you're going to write in all everything's, unicorns and roses and confetti, but I want you to know the truth. And she was a little irritated and said, if you're not going to do that. And I said, oh, I have one question. What do you want? What do you want the world to know? What do you want me to know? And she's the one who really came out really clear and talked about the isolation and loneliness. And then she said, I don't think this is going to be a very good story, because I don't think most people experience this, because she had been in a very isolated world there of what was happening. And their story was by far the most ones that people responded to and wrote me about.
Because they felt it. I mean, and it's a normal reaction. And I think a lot of people, I've talked to someone about writing a book about grief too. It's the same kind of thing. People don't know how to react. And so they just withdraw, because they're like, I don't know if they want my help or not, or they're scared to even see it, because they're scared to see that person in a different state than they knew them. And, that's a hard thing too, if, the person you worked with, or your uncle, your friend, whoever it is, it's hard to see that person in a different light. And I remember that because, one of, I think it's my husband's aunts, she had some bad dementia going on. And it is hard to see someone that you've known for years in a state where they don't know half of what's going on, really. And it's hard to do, but we got to remember there's family attached to that.
Yeah, exactly. And caregivers often feel invisible. And the focus is on the person with dementia and the family who's there day in and day out, whose lives have been turned upside down, and who are learning who don't have the privilege to say, I just can't bear to see this, so I'm not going to come around.
Right.
And they're there every day. And which really brought about then the nonprofit Doggies for Dementia, because we're raising awareness to help with this piece of it. And so Joan's story, who she thought nobody would care about or understand, has really created, and I'm happy to tell her that. And she's there, and she's become a fan, and I'm like, listen, Joan, if it wasn't for you and that saying that to me and telling that story, I don't think it would have been quite so clear in my head for a lot longer how important that piece is to raise awareness.
Well, I remember reading that story, and the first time I thought, wow, that's kind of harsh. And because a lot of your stories had a very sweet aspect to it, and she came in kind of brash, hey, this is how it is, and you better tell it like it is, or I'm not telling you.
That's exactly right, and that's what I wanted anyway. And then I want to say one of the values for me for this book of it taking so long was that I did have some follow-up visits, and theirs was one I followed up, and I all of them, that even if the person had passed, I had. And when I got there at her door, she just hugged me so hard, and because she had seen some of the things. And so their follow-up piece, which became a popular part of the books for people too, what happened next, and then what happened, and so 6 months later, a year later, even more. And, she saw it.
And that's where the thing is, if your book does take a long time, sometimes there's a good reason. And with that, that helped. I know for me personally, my first book took 4 years. And part of that was learning the writing process, but it also helped me refine the message that I wanted to share. And, so don't be discouraged if your book takes a year or two or even 4 years to write. because sometimes there's that learning curve, or there's something else that you need to go through for it to make the book even better. And and that it hasn't happened yet, and it's not there yet. Yes, there's all these programs out there. Write your book in 30 days or 3 days or 7 days, And the ones I crack up about is, put your book together in 2 weeks and it'll be ready. And I actually had somebody ask me about that recently. What do you think about those? And I went, they're probably not that good. Because you can't physically do that unless that is all you're doing 24/7 for those 2 weeks. Yeah. And even then, it's still not probably going to be the best quality, because everything takes time to refine it and do it. And you can't shove perfection and quality, and not that we're looking for perfect books, but when I say perfection, there's that different level of quality that you're going to get. And that's what you got to think about. Do you want your book out fast and maybe not the best quality? And that's the thing I pointed out to this person that asked me about this. I said, or do you want a high quality book that's going to give value to your clients, that is them going to give you valuable people that are going to come looking for you? That's what when you think about those and you see all those, write your book in a week or throw your blog post together and make a book. Please don't do that. I have a whole podcast about that. Please don't do that. Because
I'm so glad you said that, because for me, that was divine intervention at the time. If that hadn't have happened, the book would not be as full and as meaningful as it is. Yeah.
Right. You wouldn't have had that follow-up. You wouldn't have had and there was some other things that I know happened that you added to the stories after the fact, that after some of them we even added to after you had finished writing them, then you went back and refined it a little bit. I think there was a few of them you went and did that too. And so to give yourself the time that you need, don't beat yourself up if you don't have your book done, in 6 months. Unless, of course, you're just not working on it all, then you beat yourself up just a little bit so you can get moving.
Yeah.
But if you're working on it and it's just taking that time, sometimes you're learning the process. Sometimes it's like we just said, the refining of it, and that you're still learning stuff that you need to put in there. They're still experiencing the things that you need to add to it. So I like that we had that little piece. And I don't have this in here, but just tell us real quick about how Doggies for Dementia came into being.
Oh, yeah. So what I realized, the most popular images from the book and that I had of families impacted by dementia were pictures with dogs. And I'm most certain that's because dogs are so popular on social media, and it made people look to go, what's that? And then they would read the story. And so my thought was, well, if we want to raise awareness, we need to go where the people are. And the people are on the pages with pictures of dogs because they're popular. And I thought, well, how cool would that be? And also, I know when I had a dog with a shoot, suddenly it's just this, people are like kids again, and they're way more candid and fun, and you just never know what's going to happen. And there was a lightness to it. There was no need to pose or to worry about me with the camera even. They're just playing with their dogs, and which I really, really loved. And so I thought, great, we'll do that. And so Doggies for Dementia, that's how that was born. And I photograph people with their dogs. We do a whole lot more with regard to raising awareness. But those images with dogs and the people draw people into the stories, and they're learning about it without even realizing it.
How fun. I love that. And of course, I'm a dog fan. We were just talking about my puppy over here before.
Abby.
Yes, little Miss Abby and her antics, and she's got some funny ones. And
and my dog Sparky is, he's part of my branding now.
Oh, what kind of dog
Sparky.
Is he?
He's a serious mix. He's a terrier. Yeah, Yeah, Chihuahua Terrier, but more Terrier, I think. And he's very, very sweet. And he doesn't go with me to public. He's not too sure about other people, but I have had friends with dementia who had bad spells, and Sparky was there. And one thing I'm thinking in particular, when he couldn't remember even who I was for a bit or where he was, he would see Sparky and he goes, Sparky, and remembered Sparky. And so Sparky's kissing him all over, and it just eased the fog so much better. And he was able to,
I love that the dog, you don't, it's kind of like music too, the dogs, I guess, spark that other part of your brain that helps you with things. And so that's fun.
Very healing, very, very healing.
Well, question, have you written anything else since we've written the book? It's like, are you working on another book?
That's an interesting question. No, but I've actually started thinking about it because I write a lot of blogs and I do presentations, and I'm really integrating, especially now with the isolation and all the loneliness that is really, really serious for people. I mean, there are people who have loved ones in long-term care who haven't been able to be there in 6 months or more and see their loved one, and they're and many are literally dying of loneliness inside and not knowing why they're in their rooms for so long without seeing many people. And staff are doing what they can, but there's only so many, right?
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's a spiritual crisis across the board. And I've spoken with families that have been impacted and recorded videos and blogged and shared their stories. And I think now the piece, that strong element of spirituality and dementia and what it means to all of us, I would really love to focus on. And so last night, as I was finishing my slides for this presentation, I thought, interesting, I'm talking to Joyce tomorrow because I would just love to put that together. And that was the foundation. I think it's been almost 30 years now that I finished my degrees and my master's and things, and that was my focus of my thesis work, and I just love it. And
isn't it fun how things come back full circle though too? Something that it seemed maybe not as significant then, but now you come to it and you're like, well, that's why that was important really then. I love that.
It's time. I mean, we're in crises in a lot of ways right now in our country, and a lot of that has to do with our foundation, our values, and how we care for one another and how we connect with one another. Right. And those are basic spiritual needs.
Definitely.
So I think it's time. Yeah.
I do too. I think it's past time for Carmen.
I'm like, hey, it's Carmen again. Take your vitamins, Joyce. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready for you. I'm ready. Well, tell us about your writing time. As you said, you're still doing blogs. So do you have a consistent time you write? Do you write daily? Or what are some things that work for you and don't work for you when you sit down to write?
Yeah, I write daily. Because of posts, I do a lot of Instagram, Facebook posts. I do interviews. I've got the blog posts and presentations. And I just find that writing and focusing right to what I want to, what message I have, how to get there, and the storytelling is in everything. It's just in everything. I mean, we're really wired for stories. And,
yes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, you begin with the story that we can all kind of piece together, like, what's she trying to say? And it makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. Yes. And so during that time, is there anything, do you have like a special place or anything special you like to do, or music you listen to while you write?
I don't always listen to music, but I will sometimes listen to, say, an inspiring podcast or a record. I have books, recorded books,
Right.
And there are certain passages that kind of get me fired up and in the right frame of mind. I begin my day with a prayer meditation time, and then a piece of yoga for stretching. And that really helps me to let go of the other stuff. And there's a lot right now, right? And I find I need to do that more. And I have a journal right there. And when I finish, I'll jot down some ideas at whatever pops into my head. And again, that's judgment free. That's just jotting down ideas. And some of my best ideas have come right from that, because I think then it's free from all the other clutter, what pops into my head. It can be a dangerous place up there. But, some of the ideas are just like, wow, where'd that come from? Or even the idea, doggies for dementia, who thinks of that, and
well, and you make a valid point that I want to make sure everybody catches there, that when you actually let go of things, because some people try to force the writing process and think if they just, keep plugging, and sometimes you need to unplug and de-stress, go for a walk, yoga, an aerobic workout, a swim, whatever that makes you happy. Even for me, like at night, I like to sit and I find a series that I watch on either Hulu or Netflix or something. And that takes my mind off of everything from the day. So then when I actually get done watching that, because my mind has been diverted from all that chatter for a little while, when I get finished listening to something, then I can plan my day clearly. And I know, okay, tomorrow I need to do blah, 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 blah. And if there's anything I need to be thinking about, or praying about, that's a good time to do that. So if you find yourself either stuck or frustrated, don't keep pushing through. Just stop. Just stop and go get set. I mean, even if you take a 15-minute nap, if that works for you, something to, because sometimes you do that. I mean, I know that works for me, that I'll get this like overwhelming, like sleepy feeling, and I'm not like ready to go to bed, but I just need to lay down and rest and let my mind and body calm down, because I've just been running, and my head's like, we're done. We need a break.
Yeah.
And that happens with every writer, that there's going to be times you need to give yourself a break. And, I highly suggest writing daily if you can, because that keeps you at that writing muscle. You're practicing and using it. But sometimes if, you time, the energy, the stress, whatever, sometimes it's better just to take a little break and get back to it. So that's a great point about, if you have a morning routine, is excellent to do something like that to keep your mind clear. And I like to journal every day too. Sometimes it's just prayers. Sometimes it's just what's on my mind and what I'm frustrated about. And then sometimes it's fun stuff, that's going on. Because once I notice you clear out your brain out of all that crap, then the creative juices can flow and you can get those ideas, the doggies for dementia and anything else that comes to your mind. So I love that. Well, what words?
Downloads, right?
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. But you've got to give your brain the space to do it, or you're going to keep feeling tired and deflated from it. Well, what words of advice or encouragement do you have for writers who may be struggling to write their book, or not even sure where to start? Some people are there, or some people are at I've started writing it, but I don't know what to do next. Kind of where you were with your interviews.
Yeah. Well, of course, I think it's wonderful to have a coach. So I don't know what would have happened, Joyce, without you there. And for the information, of course, and to teach and to guide, but also just to talk about it. Because sometimes once you start talking and just venting, I know you probably remember this. We would just talk about it and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have an idea. Or sometimes the idea just popped into your head and we may have been talking about something completely different, as we often did. But then the idea would just pop in, and because I just let go of whatever worries were there with it. Yeah. And so I think that's another great way to you don't have to do it by yourself. And, if you can have a coach and can manage to do that and get some support in that way, I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, at least have a friend, someone you can talk to who's a very good listener, because you need to just talk it out, right? And
yeah. Well, we actually have a couple options, so if anybody's interested. There's the Write My Book Bootcamp, which is a group program, and it's a more intensive 3-month program. And then we have the TWC Writing Club, and I'll put links to both of those in the show notes. And the TWC Writing Club is a membership program that is just a monthly fee that's not too bad, but you get a lot for it. So I have added to my team since we've met. I've got Keith Keller, who helps people with audience building. He lives in Australia, so all the women love to hear his Australian accent. And then
so that's worth the price of admission, right?
There you go. That's worth the price of admission right there. Listen to Keith talk. And then Sherilyn helps people with book proposals. So we do a training each month on writing and grammar time, which is just brushing up your writing skills and techniques. And then the audience building is once a month. And then we do a group coaching call once a month. So you get to talk it out. You have groups of people to meet with. And both of them work similarly, just that the Write My Book Bootcamp moves a little faster. Actually a lot faster than the writing club. And so, but both of them are great options, just depends on where you're at. So like I said, I'll put the links in there for that, but that's my hope. I mean, I want to support writers like I do with you. And now I offer different levels of helping people. So if you can't do private coaching, there's group coaching. If you can't do group coaching, there's the membership. And that way everybody can get some help in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
So, but this has been wonderful, Carmen. I'm so glad to catch up with you and get to see where you're at. And I look forward to helping you on your next book. So
thank you.
I'm gonna throw that in there and everybody hold her accountable.
That was my epiphany last night. I mean, that's just like when that popped into my head. Because I do remember saying I will never write another book.
She did. And I said, no, you're not. You will write it up.
Yeah, I just set myself up for that one, right? As soon as I said it, I'm like, oh, how long though?
Yeah, that's like my friend who said she'd never get married again and never have any more kids. And she had a kid in marriage. And we were all laughed. She's like, why does everybody find this so funny? I said, because you said you weren't. Mm-hmm. And we all said you would. And you did.
Yeah. As soon as you say never, it's like, okay.
Yeah. You know the thing about never. You never say never because you just never know.
Right. Right.
Well,
so there's that, Joyce.
Yes, there is that.
Yeah. I use that phrase so many times. Yeah. And I think of you. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Write Hour. Our goal is to help you achieve your writing dreams.
You are one step closer to write your book.
Learn how to get the book out of your head with the 4 steps we teach our clients. Sign up for the free email series at thewritecoach.biz. The link is in the show notes.
The 4 steps help you clarify your focus, create and organize your content, and complete your book. We share tips on the writing process, and you can download the writing planner to track your progress.
Don't let fear and overwhelm keep you from writing your book.
It's time to write your book.